Welcome to the Alignment Show, where we talk with people who've made bold moves to live in line with what matters most to them. Life's too short to spend it on things that don't fit. And if you're feeling that pull to realign, you're in the right place. These conversations are here to inspire and support you on your own path. Let's meet today's guest. And a good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome once again to the Alignment Show, wherever you happen to be in the world. Glad to have you with us once again. Those of you who are watching on video, I am not where I can get on camera easily, but I didn't want to hold up the episode any longer, so we're just doing an audio-only intro. Those of you listening on a podcast, you can't tell the difference, and that's just fine. But in any case, we are here once again with a conversation that will help you to live your values and value your life. Before we get into that conversation, I want to tell you that today's episode is sponsored by my books. The latest one, just published about a month ago, is Creating While Caring. If you're caring for a loved one while trying to hold on to your writing, art, or other creative work, or you know somebody who is, you already know the struggle. Exhaustion, interruptions, guilt, the creeping fear that your creativity is slipping away. You don't need another time management lecture or productivity hack that ignores your reality. You need strategies that actually fit the caregiving life. Find out more about that at donking.com. That's DONNKING.com/creating while caring. Today on the Alignment Show, I'm thrilled to welcome Joshua Hale, a tech strategist, AI mentor, and authentic life designer who believes the future belongs to those willing to learn by doing. After transforming his own journey from survival mode to entrepreneurial mastery, Joshua now helps creators and business owners use AI not as a threat, but as a powerful co-pilot. Together, we explore how you can leverage your unique spark, let technology handle the heavy lift, and keep the human in the equation. Now, we recorded this episode really some months ago, and of course, AI has moved on, but Joshua continues to advance his own skills and to help those that he works with. So this episode remains relevant. We will update in the show notes and in our outro website link for Joshua. What's in the episode is accurate, but there's a more up-to-date way to get in touch with him. So now, let's join you into our conversation. And thank you for that introduction, Don. So let's get right into talking with Joshua here. Just in a little bit of getting to know him before we started recording, I can tell this is going to be an exciting conversation, not only because of his origin story and how he got started with what he does, but what he does is right at I know it's a cliche, but I can't think of a better one. It's really the cutting edge of what is happening right now. That is, he is a holistic tech wizard, as you can see on the screen, those of you on with us on video. He deals a lot with AI. And of course, among writers, AI is a hot topic. But I think I'm seeing a lot of discussion about how to use AI with businesses, which, Joshua, I'm assuming is more of the kind of thing that you work with. So let's just jump right in and say, how did you get started with that? I mean, what brought you to tech in general and the AI specifically?
Well, I used to be stuck in the restaurant industry. That was my whole resume, and I was banging my head trying to figure out how to get out of that. I didn't have any other experience, so I wasn't real appealing as trying to break into a new industry. So I actually came up with my first business idea, and it was a custom affirmation track that I found to be really useful for me. Showed it to a friend, and she loved it. She asked me to make her one. What really made it unique was I utilize your own voice with your affirmations. And so she showed me how to make a website, how to service others, how to fulfill it and turn it into a full-blown business. Then it was time for me to go to social media and tell everybody about it. This was 2012. A lot of, businesses were just starting to become aware that, they had to transition to this online part of promotions for their business. And so I did everything wrong for the first year, using all caps, yelling at people, telling them how great my offer was, and really not selling a single one. And through that, I gained the experience of how to market on social media. And I figured out that, other businesses were going to need this information too. So I ended up getting my first client, helping them out with their social media, and then growing my skill set from there. Facebook advertising, how to do websites, email marketing, and then the whole gambit of digital marketing. So I spent the last 12 years, gaining those skills, and then starting a marketing agency when things began to grow so much. I needed contractors, and so was running the whole thing. And then ChatGPT came out, and I went out to lunch with a friend of mine here in town. He was a fellow marketer, and he showed me kind of under the table. He's like, "Have you seen what this thing can do?" And I was completely floored at what this thing was generating right before my eyes. And went home, signed up for it because I, had my clients in the agency. I was able to test it out on a bunch of different industries and saw its strengths, its weaknesses. And we shortly thereafter onboarded a really large client. I hired 3 copywriters to go and do audience research or foundation, research for that new client. They spent 3 weeks. And then we came back and presented that information to the client to make sure that it was accurate. And during the meeting, I did my own audience research with ChatGPT. And lo and behold, it did a pretty good job. I showed one of the copywriters afterwards, and they said, "Yeah, that took us 3 weeks to do." And so I quickly saw how disruptive that was going to be. And I pretty much jumped ship from that marketing agency to be able to help businesses solo, where me and ChatGPT can do about 80% of what the agency was capable of doing. Now I can, hire out for that professional help for that final polish if needed. But really saw how, groundbreaking this technology was going to be. And so I was able to jump ship early and get into it. And I've been obsessed with it ever since, because I see how empowering it can be, not only for entrepreneurs, but, just people trying to make it through all the digital noise that's out there.
Okay, so that's a very good summary of 12 years or more there. Going to probe a little bit here, though. I think a lot of folks, maybe about the same time, were learning about some of the technology. I can see where you went step by step, but I think probably there were thousands of others who said, yeah, this is cool, but I'm in the restaurant business. And people who will spend their entire lives, happily or unhappily, I think there are plenty that spend their lives happily doing so. Probably a lot more that are unhappy, but they're in a rut, And so what led you to make that first foray? I mean, you started with the affirmation track for yourself, showed it to somebody else. And I'm going to make a parallel here, Joshua. I had a friend back in the, this would have been in the 80s, I guess, so well before the internet. He was a brilliant engineer, and he figured out some gadgets that really made life better. He made some for himself, and he gave some to some friends. Excuse me. Never occurred to him to leverage that into a business. Okay, so what I'm probing for here is what led you to leave the predictability, the comfort of the restaurant business, because people are always going to be hungry.
Yeah, well,
here's what I'm struggling with. You wisely took it step by step. You didn't jump all in with all your life savings, and yet there's still something that had to keep you going. So that's what we're probing for.
Well, I didn't have any entrepreneur mentors, so I really had no map of how this thing worked. Luckily, my friend kind of, pointed me in the right direction and gave me a little bit of inspiration. But I went to public school, and in public school, they didn't teach me about entrepreneurship. They didn't teach me about, creating offers, analyzing the market, and then putting yourself out there. So when I felt stuck in my restaurant job, I love to cook, and I still do for my family, but it was not, where my heart was, where my purpose was. And it wasn't taking advantage of, my superpowers of problem solving, things I just can't turn off. And
Mhm.
so once I started to, see the mechanics of how business operates, how to, be vulnerable enough to put something out there and take that risk of being rejected. And then the glow of, finding the right customer or client and, delivering something of value to them, I was hooked. And that's where I really, started to dive in. It did take me probably about 3 or 4 years to go all in, quit my restaurant business, and solely focus on my marketing career. But
Mhm.
it's that spark, and giving yourself permission, and understanding that this isn't the safe path of the 9 to 5, guaranteed check of trading your time for a paycheck. This is the wild west of entrepreneurship. And I think once you get it, kind of a little experience and the thrill of it, there is a bit of addiction in there. And it's a whole lot easier now that AI has come out, because it can illuminate the map that I was missing when I first started.
Okay, and that makes a lot of sense to me. I'm wondering if there might be a little hook in there, in a sense. And correct me if I'm wrong, but my impression is that you overcame some addiction of another sort. And I've had 3 of my kids have worked in the restaurant business, and so I know enough to know that very often, especially in the kitchen, behind the scenes, there are a lot of folks who are struggling with addiction. Not to say that they all are, but the industry can be tolerant of that as long as you can show up for your shifts and you can turn out good food. They don't care if you've got 3 heads, uh, that sort of thing. So in a way, I don't want to say it encourages it, but it enables it. Did you
Yeah,
see that in the restaurant business? And here's my curiosity question. I hear you talking about the excitement and the adrenaline rush. Did you replace a negative addiction with a positive addiction?
that very well could be the case. And I did have really serious drug addiction problems going through my 20s. I was a DJ, so I really like to go out to those parties and festivals, and through that developed really bad habits.
Mhm.
And the restaurant industry is right. You said it correctly. As long as you show up on time and you're able to get through your shift, then no judgment. It seems like what you do in your private time, and you work hard, you end up playing hard, and it is a very stressful job in the kitchen. And
Mhm.
so with those poor habits, when I finally simultaneously, through becoming an entrepreneur, I became sober as well. And so I
Mm.
dealt with those bad habits. I had the extreme of an opiate addiction, and it was through finally making headway with that. I did it through meditation and really cleaning up the environment of my life. Through that process, I realized I had the emotional intelligence of when I started using, even in my late teens, and the critical thinking intelligence, the social capabilities were all very stunted because of this drug use. Right?
Yeah.
I call it escapism. I was running away from the hardship of life, not meeting it and gaining the experience from it. So I was in a huge deficit when I finally got sober. This was like in my early 30s. And luckily, yeah, I did have entrepreneurship to pour myself into, to give myself purpose, to give myself drive, and to gain the experience needed quickly, right? Through being able to talk to people, be vulnerable, to make an offer, to get critical feedback and improve myself instead of just being stuck in self pity. All those things really started to sharpen the iron, so that I was able to continuously improve and improve and improve. And I have a lot of experience. I used to be really ashamed of all that, but now I realize like how stronger I am as a person, because I've gone through that.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I almost think I certainly wouldn't advocate this, but from what I've seen in the interviews I've done, not only on this podcast, but as a newspaper reporter and all those kind of things in years ago, that there's a lot of folks, for lack of a better term, we'll call it, who are successful in business, who've gone through similar experiences. It's almost like if you have an easy life, you don't get the stressors needed in order to do the kind of stuff you do now. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I commend you not only for getting sober, but for making use of those experiences and turning them in a positive direction. So we've seen the step-by-step journey through marketing. I find it interesting that you were doing marketing at the same time you were learning techie stuff, because that's two different skill sets. So how did you balance? As often happens, I'm trying to get two questions out at once. I have a great appreciation for engineers and tech folks that I know. A lot of them would never consider doing business because of that people factor. And a lot of the people factor folks, the folks who are really good at marketing, have trouble turning on a computer. So how did you balance those two so that you're developing both skill streams, we'll call it, so that they supported each other?
Yeah, I think it really boils down to a technique that I do called, teach by doing. When a client comes to me with a problem, right? I didn't say, "Oh, I don't know how to do that." I said, "Oh, let me figure it out. I'll be right. Like, give me a little bit of time, and I'll come back with a solution." And so I would then go and try it out myself, try it out with my own brand, try it out with my own business, and then figure out what worked, what didn't work, and then be able to bring back that experience to my client. Since then, I've really learned how to capture that process and record a video of me like figuring it out, which then becomes valuable as its own asset. I've created courses using this technique where I'm just learning in real time and capturing it while I do it, which then ends up, I have pretty high confidence in my skill level nowadays, and it ends up being really valuable for people, and people will pay for that valuable, knowledge if you're able to do that in real time. Another component of this is authenticity, right? I never try and hide it or, say I know something that I really don't know. I'm authentic in letting my clients know, like, oh, let me figure that out, right? I'm not trying to pretend that I know that already. I'm letting them know that I'm pretty capable in, figuring things out pretty quickly. And so being authentic and not trying to say everything, which I think is a real tell sign that you're dealing with somebody new, is that being able to, let people know that I can figure this out, and I'll be right back with the solution.
Yeah. It's almost like your base skill set is that you have learned how to learn, and so you're showing people that in real time.
Yeah,
I can't remember who to give the attribution to, but there was some famous marketing person back in the 30s who said nobody knows nothing. And so recognizing that up front, and we'll figure it out. It's almost like your tolerance for not knowing is a real value that you bring to your clients.
Yeah, because that takes vulnerability, and a lot of people are afraid to let people know that they don't know. And I developed what I ended up learning has a name. It's called autodidact, and that's just a self-taught learner. So that's really captures what I've managed to do for the last 12, 15 years, is just being able to be confident enough to figure things out.
I'll ask a sideways question here. I worked with college students for 40 years, and I saw at least 3, I think 4 generational shifts. The most recent ones, I would tell them, in a way, it's kind of sad that all you have to do to get ahead is just be willing to be stupid. Because so much of our education culture seems to be, here are the answers, memorize them, give them back on a test, which does not develop critical thinking skills, the kind of thing that has become your superpower, it seems to me.
That's right. And
you see that same thing.
I was just hanging out with my buddy, helping him move. He's a first-time home buyer, and he's fixing up the house that he's in right now. And he just said, I can't believe that between ChatGPT and YouTube, I can figure anything out. And it's true. We're now in an age where knowledge is freely available, right? 10, 15 years ago, everything was pretty locked up behind, gates, and you had to pay good money to get access to that information. Well, we're in a completely different age now. I have a 7-year-old daughter, and so she's being raised a completely different path than, how I was, a long time ago, because knowledge is freely accessible. And I don't think the current education system is actually able to keep up with that. Between having an AI tutor, which is basically already here, and with, real world experience, I think, the kids nowadays are going to be really much more equipped than school lessons that were, focused on memorization and not actual real world skills.
Well, and you probably used the phrase yourself, and I know you've heard it. It's not that AI is going to take our jobs, but rather that people who know how to use AI will take the jobs from people who don't know how to use AI. So within that, what is it that the human brings to it when it's no longer, the knowledge is no longer hidden behind a closed door?
Well, it really boils down to what I call the 10-80-10 method. 10% is the idea, the creator, right? What do you want to do? That is a crucial component that luckily AI can't do right now. Then the 80% is, AI. AI can do some amazing things. It's progressing faster than anybody expected. Just in the last 2 years, it's gone from just this novelty toy to a very powerful tool. And then the last part is the 10%, it might be 10-20% of always putting that human touch, going through the information, choosing the best stuff, and putting your own take on it. So through that method, it has the human to begin and the human to finish, but that 70-80% in the middle, that can now be greatly with higher degrees of results, with greater brainstorming power, with more creative, outputs. This is now really empowering individuals where before, we were really, like I said, we had to pay for just access to knowledge.
Yeah. And just for lack of a better term, the grunt work. There's a metaphor that I have heard recently, and I'll give one of my mentors, Joanna Penn, credit for this idea. This is within the writer community. I think she's explicitly put it this way. This just may be my interpretation of it, that as writers, we may begin to think of ourselves more like directors than like actors. And of course, directing a movie is a very creative thing. It's the director bringing his or her vision to life through the agency of other people, not just actors, the director of photography, the special effects folks. Is this where humans are going to be fitting more with AI in business and other kinds of things?
Well, I see the capabilities of humans creating as exploding. Just 2 weeks ago, ChatGPT came out with a new image model. This image model can just do amazing things. Anything you can think of, it can basically visually, give it to you now. And it doesn't have 6 fingers anymore. It can do text, just about near perfect. And this is allowing us to be even more creative, I see it, because I was never, a great copywriter. I was never a great digital graphic designer. But now those limitations are no longer there. I can come up with an idea and a website and images and copy for that website all in one, creative flow, which last week I was waking up at 4 a.m. on this creative excitement and jumping out to my office, working on my website. And through this whole process, I think creators are now able to create even more. I had one of my first clients was a romance author. She's still a client to this day. She's had a huge aversion to AI, and I totally give her that space, to to sit with that. But this last meeting that we had, I was running some ads for her new book that's out there, and I was like, hey, you want to try out this image generator? She's like, oh, I don't know, this could be the end of the world. And I showed her, I gave it information about her book, and like first shot, she's like, oh, that's pretty nice. Yeah, let's go with it. Right. So once the entrepreneur, the creator can see like, oh, I can't do graphic design, so this is useful. So long as you are able to safeguard that creative process, right? And which I really see AI as being kind of a co-pilot and not, just coming in to take over that whole thing. If you love doing it, if you love, the art of doing it, keep doing that. There's other areas, that it can help you out with, but it's really here as an assistant.
Yeah, yeah. It makes me think about the folks out there who might be saying, well, what about that graphic designer who now does not have a job? From what I'm hearing with you, though, chances are that romance author was not already spending hundreds and thousands of dollars paying a graphic designer. It didn't take a job away from somebody. It just gave a capability to somebody who wouldn't have bought otherwise and couldn't do it herself. Does that provide, I don't know. I'm trying to play devil's advocate here, and I'm having trouble with it because I'm kind of on the same side. Let me tell you another one that I know about. People in translation have been worried about their job, people translating books from English into, say, German or French. But then I heard about a translator who has been using AI, and what it does is do the initial pass through the book so that all he has to do is edit it. And he's making more money than ever because he can charge the client less, but he can do so many more. He can take care of so many more clients that way. And it's avoiding what was the least enjoyable part of the process for him, that initial grunt work. So what he's doing is editing what the AI puts out, tweaking it, making sure the tone is right, and all those sorts of things. Is that the wave of the future with AI?
I think that really is crucial. And, people with specialized expertise, if they're able to utilize AI with their specialized expertise, they're going to be that much better because, right, of time saved. And they can really, use their expertise to guide the AI better than I could for graphic design or for copywriting, right? Because they know what good looks like. And so adapting these tools is just going to make them even better, just like how you outlined. And this is where, I'm trying to wake people up to let them know this is so powerful of a tool, more so than anything else man has invented, because this is the first tool that will teach you to use it. And so we're able to, leverage this tool, and I see it as, leveling the playing field of allowing everybody to come up with a creative idea. And, for entrepreneurs, shorten the distance between idea to marketplace so that you can get that real-time feedback, see, if this is viable or something valuable. But it makes everything shorter, faster, and higher quality. And it doesn't take it away from, from you, unless you want to, talk about automation and robots and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, you don't just say to the AI, hey, write me a romance novel. I mean, it takes the creativity, the input to begin with, the director model, I keep coming back to. So let's explore two, just like you manage tech and business at the same time. Let's explore these two avenues here. The advice that you would give to somebody today who is starting a business. I suspect it's a little more likely that people can start side hustles and be a solopreneur than what it has been. And the other stream then to explore is the advice that you would give to people who are afraid of AI. How, not just how to get over that fear, but how to realistically harness it. So whichever stream you want to go down first, you've got the background to give advice in both of those streams.
Sure. Well, I'll address the concerns first because, this is a big inhibitor of people even, trying this out or exploring. So initially, people are concerned about data, right? Well, how I'm afraid if I share, sensitive information with it, that it could show up, on the other side of the world. That's not how these AI large language models work. It has privacy features built into it, so first off, don't share no social security numbers or like any real sensitive information. That should be a given. But for the most part, it's taking your information and shredding it down to ones and zeros. And then if you give it permission to train itself on it, it will never, appear around the world. Secondly, people are really worried of, is this Terminator? Is this what's going to like end the human race? And I say, AI has been around for 50 years, maybe longer, right? It's just been this algorithm that's been improving. It's already in a lot of aspects of society. If you listen to Spotify or use YouTube, they're using these AI algorithms to, curate things for you. So it's already part of society. Just what's really changed is these large language models that came out about 3 years ago that has transformed the ability for people to basically just be able to talk to AI in our normal language. That's what's so revolutionary about this. So right now, it's just a tool, right? It could be used for, malicious intent, right? Deep fake videos and things like that. But just like a hammer, right? It could be used to build a house. And we're at a precipice right now where, the AI train has already left the station. I really advocate for people to start learning it and figuring out its practical uses in your life, so you can see all of the time saving, all of the benefits it can help. Communication it helps me a lot with, and once you see the practical uses, then you can start figuring out ways to make things more efficient, better output, time saving. And the big elephant in the room is this type of AI could possibly, end up creating something like autonomous weaponry, which is an issue in the government. But and it could lead to terminate. That's not where we are right now. This is just a hammer, a tool to be used, and it's evolving quickly. And so if you don't learn to use AI, like you said earlier, then your competition will be, and it's going to create a huge gap in between us.
Mm-hmm. I have to wonder, people will call for regulation, and it's moving so fast that regulation is not going to be effective, even if philosophically you would want to go that way. Is it more a matter that there will be white hats, so to speak, who will use AI in order to combat those who would misuse AI? You think that's where we're going with that?
Well, I think the only way through, because AI is like out of the genie bottle, right? Is for us all to have a localized AI system on our phone, on our computer at home, that doesn't travel onto the cloud server, doesn't go onto the internet, but is there to like look out for you. Because big governments have their own AI systems, big corporations have their own AI systems, and I really think that only having a personalized AI as a form of defense is going to be our only way path through this. I honestly would have been, happy with waiting another 10 years for this large language model, right? So humans could evolve a little bit more. I think that wouldn't hurt. But here it is. This is what we're dealing with, and I'm a big advocate for like learning to use this tool so these tools don't end up, using you.
That's a really good way to put it. You want to make sure the humans stay in charge. Oh, okay. So as far as what we might just call general business advice, AI has certainly changed the business landscape. And so for somebody, whether they're just, I don't know, straight out of high school, straight out of college, or even somebody later in life who's looking at a second or third career, in a way, it's a level playing field because all of this is so new. There's nobody who's really an ahead of the curve expert because the curve is moving too fast. So, what would we say to people who are thinking about just starting a business right now? What should they do?
I have a prompt about the ikigai method. Ikigai is a Japanese term, and it's where, what you love to do, what skills you have, and what the market will pay you for all intersect. So, you could go through and there's books and videos out there, or I created a prompt. So it'll just ask you questions about yourself, and you can just tell it, this is what experience I have. This is what I love to do, right? When time just flies by, hours go by and you don't even notice. Those things that get you into flow, and then figuring out ideas what the market will pay you for. We're in a very unique time where, because of the internet, you can get in front of like the most unique topics and people because of the internet connecting us all. So if you have a really niche idea of like, oh, I have this problem and then I figured out a solution for it, I wonder if other people do, most likely they're out there. So between the ikigai method and figuring out, what you're great at and what market will pay you for, ChatGPT will give you, 20 ideas of small businesses that you can like start. And it used to be I was a victim of this, but I thought I had to get my website ready. I had to get all of my social media posts ready. I had to get like my fulfillment process all dialed in before making my first offer. And I totally had that backwards. You need to find the shortest distance to putting that offer out there to see if the marketplace is even going to be interested. And I recommend people, can you sell it to a couple of your friends? Like, don't get offered to give it to them for free, because your friends will just, take it and because they're your friends. But can you put it, $10, $20? Would you pay, $50 for this, or like a small version of it? And that will give you your first real-time market feedback to be like, oh, well, they liked it, they didn't like it. Oh, they would have liked it if it did this, right? So you're able to get that valuable information before wasting, the 40 hours trying to build a website, before trying to, create a social media presence. That shortened distance between idea and marketplace is really what's so valuable in this time, because AI can help you with all those steps to get there, can refine your offers and help you out with, what's a perfect side hustle for you. And this is what I spend most of my time throughout the week, is helping clients fast track this whole process, either from ideas or to coming up with, I call it a living document, where we take all of the methods of my marketing agency that I used to run, I turn them all into prompts. I just interview the business owner and get their wisdom and real-time experience, translate that into audio to text, feed that right into ChatGPT. So the business owner just kicks back and gets interviewed. They enjoy it. And then they end up with a living document where it's about 50 to 100 pages long. And then afterwards, you can just upload that document that has everything about your business, all the pain points of your customers, the solutions that you're going to be providing to the marketplace. You upload that and you can ask for whatever you want from it. I need some social media post ideas. I need some email marketing. I need a promotional email for this coming springtime. It then has the foundational information to be able to just give that directly, that high quality output for whatever you're asking for. So that's what I really love to do throughout the week, is, help business owners that typically, if you ask them to, download another app, they're going to their eyes are going to roll back in the back of their head. So being able to just help people out, a little hand holding with understanding AI and being able to take advantage of it right now, even without them being able to fully, master it themselves.
I can see where that would be a real value to them, because they're at the point of, I don't want to have to learn one more thing. My plate's full already. That's where the human can really be a useful, the metaphor I think of is the Sherpa, like the mountain guy. He's not going to carry you up the mountain, but he's been up the trail a number of times and knows where to put your feet.
Okay. That's right.
Let's see, there was another one that had occurred to me, something that we're getting some recent pushback on. And I'm going to play devil's advocate, but I'm also going to flop over on the other side real quickly. I'm hearing people who will say that using AI costs a lot more in terms of impact on the environment. For instance, a perplexity search. The claim is that it takes 10 times more water for cooling the computers and that kind of thing than a Google search does. But I'm also wondering if, in light of what you were just saying, how it shortens the cycle time, that if overall it actually may be leading to less of an impact on the environment because you just don't have to do as much with as many people.
Yeah, I would say, the efficiency improvement that it gives would have a good impact. And then also, this tool is going to come up with solutions to help humanity. Energy itself, it can come up with solutions. I saw in another country, like came up with a new engine type, propulsion engine. You can fact check that. And I really think it's going to be the tool that's going to solve its own issues, right? This is the first time, like I said, this tool can teach you how to use it, and the models are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and can solve bigger problems. It's basically at a point where it's above my pay grade, right? The models that are currently out there are great for personal use, great for entrepreneurial use, and then everything else is high level science and math, but these things are going to be a huge advantage to humanity to get us out of the big pickles that we've found ourselves in the last century.
Oh my! Well, and before I forget, we've had crawls going here with websites and that sort of thing, but we have a lot of listeners who are on with us audio only, so we want to be sure that people know how to take advantage of your resources, connect with you. One of those ways is your website, which is joshuahale.io. Curiosity, if somebody out of habit types the .com, does that redirect to the .io, or is that?
It doesn't. .com was taken. They wanted, thousands of dollars. So
Right.
.io is the place to go.
And I understand that. I've run into that myself. So let's just be real clear, folks. The website is Joshua Hale. Last name is Hale, joshuahale.io. And he's using that name consistently. So we will Linktree, for example, which is a great resource to be able to share a lot of other resources. That's Linktree, linktr.ee/Joshua Hale IO. And I think that's even the name that you have on your LinkedIn. Am I correct about that? Okay.
That's right.
So you can just do a search on LinkedIn for Joshua Hale IO, and you'll find Joshua. So are there any other resources we need to be sure that we mention out loud, Joshua, for the audio audience?
Well, I have a ton of resources on my website, from helping people find their purpose to helping them, start their business, to leveling up their business if they already have one. So make sure to go to my website, and I try to offer people, a free way to learn from me through my emails and newsletters, to, working with me or learning from my courses and kind of do it yourself, to then hiring me to come in and really help make things more efficient for you.
Excellent. And you're always putting new material up there because you're continuing to learn.
Yep. That's
Very
right.
good. So at this point, a lot of times I like to wrap up a program by saying I'm always a generalist talking to somebody who is specialized in some area. There's probably something that you wish that I had asked about that I did not. If there is such an area, what would it be? What would the question be? And what would your answer to that be?
Well, I guess one area that is also part of my brand and my pillars and my mission is community building. I'm really interested in building resilient communities locally. And so I have on my website, a thing called mutual aid groups, which I've been leading my own mutual aid group for the last 3 years. It's a group of 8 families that, have each other's back. We get together and we do skill shares. We get together and, practice for, disaster preparation, things like that. I think that's just really a smart thing to do for yourself and family to insulate you in a rapidly changing world. I think everybody can, recognize the benefit of getting to know your neighbors and like having a plan, right? If something was to happen, either through nature or through, the wacky society we're living in, to be able to just help us be our best selves, right? And so I've done the work to improve myself, improve my family, and now, I'm really focused on improving my local community.
Excellent, excellent. It's bringing the human back into it even more deeply.
That's right.
Wonderful parallel development there. Well, folks, we will have links to all of these in the show notes, and especially for those of you maybe on audio to where it's hard to write those things down, especially if you're driving while you're listening to this. So just be sure that you remember to find the show notes for this episode or any other episode. You can go to confidencecultivators.com. I always emphasize that last S because it's plural. confidencecultivators.com. And you can get all of these links. I'm not sure when this will be broadcast, but I can pretty much say that once it is broadcast, we'll have those show notes up within 24 hours or so. So very good to get to know you, Joshua. I'm so glad that our mutual friend Noemi brought us together. And I will look forward to learning more from you myself. I think we're on a similar mission here.
Thanks for having me, Don. Really look forward to helping your audience.
I'll turn it back over to my other self. So, Don, take it away. I hope you got a lot out of that conversation, both encouragement for you in following your own values and also some useful insights into really how to make use of AI and all that sort of thing in the real world, the world as it is today. I mentioned in the intro that there was an updated website for Joshua, and honestly, it's kind of hard to say out loud, so we're going to depend on the show notes. The best thing I can do then for those of you listening, it's one extra click, but I think it's the simplest way for you to find Joshua. If you will go to our show notes that you can find at donking.com, that's DONNKING.com/98, the number 98. Those are our show notes for this episode, donking.com/98. You will find there a link to everything that we have current for Joshua Hale. So in any case, we will look forward to seeing you or talking with you next time right here on The Alignment Show. That's a wrap for this episode of The Alignment Show. What's your next step? Whatever came up for you, take action. Talk it out with a friend or just sit with it for a moment. And if this episode sparked something meaningful, share it with someone you care about. You can subscribe and find all past episodes at thealignmentshow.com. And be sure to follow or leave a review wherever you heard or watched this. It really helps more folks find the show. We'll be back soon with another thoughtful conversation. Until then, live your values and value your life.